Welcome to Writer's Block. I'm Rex. He's Lav. We just got through watching the playoff at the Valspar Championship, and Sam Burns goes back-to-back in Tampa. Lav, what was your immediate takeaway?
My immediate takeaway, I think I had a lot of them, to be honest with you. This was the rare battle where you had top-ranked junior players back in the day, so it was cool to see these two square off. I think you have to give a tip of the cap to Davis Riley, who had a triple bogey early in his round and really fought back just to get in this playoff. And then to see Sam Burns hold that 35-foot putt in the second playoff hole, win now for the third time in the past 12 months, crack the top 10 in the world rankings. This is a kid who continues to get better. When you look at his statistics throughout the bag, he really doesn't have any weaknesses. And I would put him firmly now, Rex, among those major contenders as the calendar really starts to get into the heat of that in first 2022.
Two things struck me from this. One, there's no gauge, there's no stat, there's no shots gained for clutch putting. We can talk about putting, we can talk about strokes gained, and certainly you look at all those stats for Sam Burns over the course of the week, and he is excellent at it. What took me is the putts he had to make on cue, and I'm just not talking about the 32-footer on the second playoff hole. To end it all, there was the bogey putt on the 71st hole from 9 feet. A really nervy putt. Things were coming apart. Hit a very, very poor chip to even put himself in that position, and he needed it just for bogey, just to maintain the lead. And you see a side of Sam Burns, and I guess
there's a putt, Rex, on the 70th hole when he missed the green left and he needed to make about an 8-footer just to stay too clear at that point.
And I don't know how you would define clutch putting. I mean, I think you and I both agreed throughout the course of his career, Tiger Woods was always the best clutch putter in the game. But I see something in Sam Burns, and I don't want to compare him to Tiger because that's never fair. But there's certainly an element there that is impressive, that sort of impresses me beyond just those 3 victories. And I'm not trying to discount those because you said he moves into the top 10 in the world. And I guess in my mind, he was already there. I already felt like because of how many times he was putting himself in contention, he was already at that level. But now you look at what he did, not just against Davis Riley, and this is no disrespect to Davis, but it was JT. I mean, really, this came down to Sam Burns head-to-head, playing in the same group on a Sunday, and he outplayed JT. I think it takes him to the next level in my mind. When you look at where he was through 54 holes last week at the Players' Championship, he was tied for second. He had a really good chance of winning that. He finished in the top 10 at Bay Hill just 2 weeks ago, had an opportunity to win that. This isn't a role. This is kind of who he is now, and I think he's elevated himself beyond that atmosphere of saying, oh, he's 10th in the world. No, he's a clutch player, and he's one of the world's best right now.
Yeah, but this is what we've seen over the past 5 or 6 years. I mentioned he was a top-ranked junior player. Well, he also won College Player of the Year in 2017. He's just kind of made that steady progression. I think that now he's more comfortable on the PGA Tour, and he's putting himself in this position more often. I believe he had the most 36-hole leads on the PGA Tour over the past year. And so this is kind of that comfort factor. Once he gets into the mix, he kind of sees how his body reacts, and he's able to adjust accordingly. You think back to Monday, the final round of the Players' Championship, played in that final group, shot 76, looked like he was totally out of gas, brought his coach in, got some things worked out, and you see what he did now on a very difficult golf course, a great test of golf. I think Sam Burns' target and his arrow pointed straight back up.
Haley, he misses one episode, goes to Turks and Caicos with his wife and forgets how this works. When she takes the headline away, we stop talking. So we're moving on now.
I'm not done.
Yep. This
is all just a guideline. This is just a guideline.
It's a construct. You can talk for as long as you want. That's not true at all. Haley took the headline away. Moving on. We mentioned Justin Thomas. He came up a stroke shy of the playoff, had opportunities coming down the stretch. This is a second consecutive week that we've kind of had this conversation about JT because he was sort of right there in the mix throughout what was a crazy week at the Players' Championship. So if you had to look at it, do you have any kind of concern for where JT is in his game, or is there a level of confidence that may not have been there before?
I think there's nothing but confidence. You think back to where he was a year ago. He may have just won the Players' Championship, but we saw how he played for the rest of the calendar year. He called it, by his estimation and in his own words, a disappointing year. And I think you look at his stats now, 6 of his last 8 tournaments now have gone for top 8 finishes or better. I think there's just something slightly off. I don't know whether he's, not maximizing his rounds. I think it's probably 2 or 3 putts around that he's just missing. There's some drives that just trickle into the rough. There's some approach shots that just trickle onto the fringe and leave for some tricky leaves there. He's just not quite sharp enough to win on the PGA Tour, the highest level in golf. It does feel like, Rex, though, that he is setting himself up for a very big summer where I could easily see him rip off 2 or 3 victories, including in those major championships, which have really caused him a lot of problems since the 2017 PGA. I'm
going to go half full on this one as well. I think confidence is the right way to lean in this direction for the reasons you just pointed out, that last year after that Players victory, it was dreadful. He was not at all happy with what he was able to do. And now he's given himself a couple of opportunities. There is a little bit of concern because I look at what he did on the 72nd hole, and he kind of got unlucky. Like, he hit into a fairway bunker, ended up with a bad lie, couldn't really do much with it. But then you look at what he had done for the other 17 holes, and he just didn't seem to have his best stuff. And this isn't the first time that we've seen this in this situation from Justin Thomas, when he's had an opportunity to go out and to win events against, let's face it, a level of players that he should be beating, the Davis Rileys of the world. I know they're friends, but if you look at where he is in his career and where Davis is in his career, there should be that one should be easy. If I'm going to go head to head with this kid, I should win every time. And you don't see it. And there's also the element of, you mentioned it, he is now a year removed from his last PGA Tour victory. That's really not a reason to hit the panic button for a lot of players. But when you look at what he has done over the course of his career, it is a little concerning because he has always been much more consistent than that. And he's, as you pointed out, he's missing something. Something's not there.
He is consistent in having consistently high results. I agree with you. It's a little bit alarming that he hasn't won in a calendar year. You can also say, Jon Rahm, the world number one, is also encroaching on 1 year without a victory. Bryson DeChambeau does not have a victory in more than a year.
Jon Rahm's in June. We're 2 months away from that. Man, you can't lump that in. No.
We're encroaching Jon Rahm not having a victory in the calendar year. I think when you look at JT's metrics, his driving is decidedly better than it was last year. That was really the deciding factor in why he did not play well. His approach game, you certainly saw it at Innisbrook, second in the field in approaching the green. That's where we expect JT. He is a separator when it comes to iron play, just like the rest of the best players in the world, whether it's Colin Morikawa or Jon Rahm. JT's iron play is a separator. If he can just continue to make strides with his putting, I think he's going to rip off a couple wins.
We normally don't do this on a Sunday night. We normally like to look back at the tournament that was just played, but we are going to look ahead a little bit. Bryson DeChambeau is currently in the field for next week's WGC Match Play Championship. Well, for now, where I will be in Austin in just a few hours, actually. My plane leaves at 6 a.m. How about another one of those wake-up calls?
Sure. And you have a red eye back?
Good morning. No red eye back. I don't have to worry about that.
Good morning, Gary.
You touched on it. He's in the field for now. I think there was a level of concern that you and I both shared, that when he withdrew from the Saudi event just a few weeks ago now, that this was worse than what he was letting on to, that maybe there was something more to this than he wanted to. And there was a little bit of pushback on his front on social media about, it's not the end of the world, trying to calm everyone down.
Chill. Everyone needs to chill, I believe was the phrase.
Is this a good thing or a bad thing? That he is, at least for now, scheduled to play this week?
It's always a good thing when Bryson's in the field because I think it makes the tournament more interesting for his prospects. I think it's probably a bad thing, to be honest with you. And look, we're taping this at 7 o'clock Eastern time on Sunday night. By the time 7 a.m. rolls around on Monday, we may have a more definitive answer to this, and Maverick McNeely may be in the field. We've done similar dances at Bay Hill, at the Players Championship. If I were Bryson, I understand the allure of playing in the WGC match play. It's a relatively straightforward golf course. There's not going to be a lot of hack out rough. He's guaranteed 3 matches and 3 rounds in a format in which he has never moved on to the round of 16. So I think the expectations for that can probably a little bit lowered. To me, you're 2 weeks now away from the start of Masters Week.
Yeah.
Just make sure you get as close to 100% as possible and don't potentially sabotage yourself for the rest of the year just to get some warm-up reps.
And I think that's what we're both hearing from inside the camp, that he is probably healthy enough right now to come back and play. The idea, though, is he wants to be 100% at Augusta. That being said, I would think he wants to get some sort of reps, and the match play is probably the best place to do that because you're guaranteed at least 3 rounds in a competitive environment.
But if there's even a doubt in which he could injure himself or potentially set himself back for the next couple of months, don't even risk it. You're 2 weeks away from Augusta. I would be, to be honest, Rex, and I don't have any inside information on this, I'd be surprised if he tees it up on Wednesday.
I'm leaning, it's probably 50-50 right now for me. As we get closer to Wednesday's opening round, I think I'm going to start sliding back in the other direction just because of the reasons that we just pointed out. And look, we haven't even touched on what's the elephant in the room, that we can all look at that swing and what he's done with his body and say to ourselves, oh, that's not going to hold up over a prolonged period of time. It seems to me it happened quicker than any of us thought. So I think there is a level of interest that if he does come back this week, we want to see exactly how his body is held up to this, because we all knew that this ending isn't going to be good if he continues down this road.
If he comes back, I think that's a level of indication of the comfort and the satisfaction that he's had in some of his practice sessions leading up to this, his speed training, his weightlifting, however he does to get ready for PGA Tour competition. He must have reached certain checkpoints in his recovery that he feels good enough to go full bore in a PGA Tour event again.
All right, we're going to finish off with this one. The Valspar Championship was the last of the 4 Florida Swing events. When you look back at the 4 events, what stands out?
What stands out was that Saturday at the Players Championship where you had 40-mile-an-hour wind gusts. I mean, that was among the most fun viewing I think we'll have all year long. I think it's safe to predict that on March 20th. For me, though, Rex, I think the biggest highlight was the way that Cam Smith played those final 3 holes in regulation at TPC Sawgrass. I mean, I can't say it on this digital video, but the
sure you can.
gut check.
You can. There it is.
The gut check swings that he made down the stretch, getting up and down after finding the water on the 72nd hole. That's something that you're going to think back and see on the highlight reel for a long time. Just kind of like Ricky Fowler back in 2015, the shots he pulled off down the stretch. Cam Smith was very much in that vein.
I went with 2, and we were both at Tiger Woods' induction ceremony at the Hall of Fame, his daughter introducing him. We were both taken by so many different things, and I think it was a more emotional night than I gave it credit for coming in. I mean, Tiger is not an emotional person by design. I mean, I think his greatness sort of transcended that throughout the entirety of his career. However, in this particular moment, it was special to see how much it actually meant to him, and you don't see that much from Tiger Woods. Certainly when he won the Masters a few years ago, it was there. But in this particular setting, I was taken by that. And the other one was Scotty Scheffler winning at Arnold Palmer. And only because, and I'm not quite the agent of chaos that you are, but how he won it in those demanding conditions and just a grinding performance, sort of the type of performance that I know that Arnold Palmer would have appreciated. So that one's going to stand out to me because I think you're right. When you look at what Cam Smith did at the Players Championship, when you look at really all 4 of the events, it was hard, man.
That's what we want to see.
Is it?
The criticism during Hawaii and the West Coast swing, these courses are too easy. Even Riviera, which never lends itself to low scores, we're looking at record 20 under par winning there by Joaquin Niemann. I mean, I kind of liked a little bit of pushback. Maybe players don't want to see the 35, 40-mile-an-hour winds that we saw at TPC Sawgrass, but I like a little pushback in my PGA Tour venues.
There it is, the agent of chaos. Are you done with your vacations? You're going to be with me on Wednesday when we set up the match play? Oh, no, it has to be Tuesday. I'm sorry. Tuesday when we set up the match play. It's going to have to be Tuesday.
We'll have a podcast where we're going to break down the entire bracket with this round robin, which I'm not going to lie, I'm still not a huge fan of. I still think it robs us of the best Wednesday in golf.
It turns the best Wednesday in golf into 3 watered-down days. But that's a subject for another day. Thanks for joining us. We'll talk to you on Tuesday.